These are the walls of Mehrangarh Fort, the seat of Maldeo of Marwar. By the mid-1500s, Maldeo had seized Bikaner, Merta, and Siwana, effectively bringing the surrounding desert kingdoms under his thumb through sheer military force. Jaisalmer's rulers watched his expansion with the knowledge that they were next. They initially tried to buy peace with land and tribute, but soon realized that a temporary payout wouldn't stop a king like Maldeo. They needed a permanent alliance. The Bhati royals proposed a marriage between Maldeo and their princess, Umade. The offer was a strategic play, one arrow aimed at two targets. It would turn a terrifying enemy into a powerful son-in-law, and it would instantly secure Jaisalmer's borders. But King Lun Karan of Jaisalmer had a different ending in mind. He planned to treat the wedding as a trap. Since a groom must sit alone and unarmed during the sacred fire rituals, Lun Karan prepared to assassinate Maldeo the moment he was separated from his guards. Umade overheard her father discussing the murder. She faced a choice between the man who raised her and the man she was promised to, a man she had never actually met. Because Rajput code held that an engagement was half a marriage, she viewed Maldeo as her husband already. She sent a secret letter to his camp, warning him that the wedding altar was actually a scaffold. Maldeo survived only because he arrived at the ceremony flanked by his own bodyguards, who physically dragged King Lunkaran away from the rituals. The wedding proceeded, but the marriage was now built on a foundation of blood and broken trust. To signal his dominance, Maldeo's wedding procession was an ocean of elephants and horses. It was a display of power so vast that contemporary accounts claimed women crowded the rooftops of Jaisalmer just to witness a force they knew would never be seen again. On the wedding night, Maldeo retreated to the royal chambers in a drunken state. Princess Umade, however, was delayed for hours by the elaborate bridal preparations and the weight of her royal jewelry. To attend to the king while she finished her preparations, Umade sent Baramali, a beautiful orphaned maid who had been raised in the palace like a sister to the princess. When Umade finally entered the room, she found her husband and her maid together. In his intoxication, Maldeo had ignored his new bride to pursue her servant. That single moment ended the marriage. Umade took a vow that night to never look at Maldeo's face again, regardless of his apologies or his status as king. She spent the rest of her life in exile, known throughout Rajasthan as the Ruthi Rani, the sulking queen. She became a woman defined by her pride, refusing to bend even for the most powerful man in the region. Years later, Maldeo attempted a reconciliation. He sent Ashananji, a respected scholar and poet, to travel to the queen's exile and convince her to return to Jodhpur. Umade initially agreed. She saw the political logic in returning. It would stabilize the court and ensure that her adopted son, Ram Singh, remained in the line of succession. But as her palanquin approached the palace, Ashananji had a change of heart. He realized that by returning, Umade was trading her legendary integrity for comfort. He stood before her, raising his hand to halt the procession, and recited a poem that would change her mind forever. He warned her that she could have her pride or she could have her husband, but no one could hold both. He used the metaphor of two elephants, two massive egos that cannot be tied to a single post without tearing the whole structure down. Umade ordered her procession to turn around and head back into exile. She chose the path of pride, confirming that her honor was more valuable than royal power or the companionship of a king. While the queen lived in cold honor, the maid, Baramali, was sent back to Jaisalmer. Her presence created intense friction. She was so striking that the Jaisalmer queens feared their husbands would abandon them for her. The queens hired Baga Koteria, a bandit who operated in the lawless regions of the desert, to abduct Baramali. They wanted her removed from the royal court, and they didn't care what happened to her once she was gone. Baga took Baramali and fled into the deep dunes of the Thar. But out in the desert, away from the expectations of the court, a deep love formed between them that defied their roles as captor and captive. When Maldeo heard that a common bandit had taken Baramali, he again sent Ashananji to find them. He expected the scholar to negotiate or threaten Baga until the girl was returned to the king. But when Ashanand arrived, he found a bandit who treated a traveling scholar like a god. Baga walked miles on foot to meet Ashanand's palanquin, and carried the weight himself, offering a level of hospitality and respect that Ashanand had never seen in Maldeo's court. Ashanand was so moved by the genuine devotion between Bhaga and Baramali that he refused to take her back. He defected from Maldeo's service entirely, choosing to live out his days with the outlaws instead of the royalty. The stories of the queen and the maid ended in the same year. King Maldeo died in Jodhpur, and shortly after, Bhaga the bandit died in the desert. These orange handprints record the sati ritual, a widow joining her husband's funeral pyre. Umade performed sati with Maldeo's turban, fulfilling her duty to a man she refused to see for decades, a final act of cold protocol. Baramali also climbed the pyre to die with Bhaga, but she did so because she refused to exist in a world where he was gone. Umade died to preserve her status in a hierarchy that had failed her. Baramali died because of an inseparable devotion to the man who had rescued her from the court. Ashanandji survived them both, but he descended into a state of grief that the world perceived as madness. He wandered the desert in rags, obsessed with the memory of Bhaga's character. He became a ghost in the desert, refusing gold or royal comforts. He would speak to no one unless they were willing to listen to his poems about the bandit he now considered his true master. The Rana of Amarkort once offered a fortune in gold coins to Ashanand's family if the scholar could go a single night without chanting Bhaga's name. Ashanand tried, but he broke before the sun rose, shouting that he could not sell his memory for gold. While kings like Maldeo are remembered for the land they conquered, it was the devotion of two desert outcasts that drove the era's most brilliant mind to abandon all his wealth, his home, and eventually his sanity.